The Eagles announced yesterday that they have found their offensive coordinator, and he is, drum roll please, 33-year-old Sean Mannion. Yes, 33 years old. You probably remember the name. I'm fairly certain he was in the league in 2021. I mean, Colin, this is a super young guy. He will be replacing Kevin Patullo, who was a straight-up disaster. Sirianni is very excited about this hire. And I think part of it has to do with some of the coaches that Sean Mannion played for. Are you ready, Colin? Yeah. During his NFL career? He just happened to be a backup with Sean McVay as his head coach, with Kevin O'Connell as his head coach, with Matt LaFleur as his head coach. So he comes from that McVay tree.
Yes.
It's unclear as of right now if he's going to call plays or not. This guy has 2 years experience as a coach. He was a quarterback coach last year. That's all he's really done, Colin. Is he too young for the job? Does he have enough experience?
Well, I root for people, young people who get jobs. I've always said this. You probably, in your first big job, could be my kids, it could be this coach. Your first big job of your career, you should bail water for about 6 weeks. If you're ready for the job, your first job out of college or your first big job in your mid-20s, late 20s, I mean, big job. If you're totally ready for it, it's not a challenge. So I am always rooting for people that go into jobs where you're like, I'm not sure they're ready. It'll all come down to this. How smart is he? Smart people learn stuff faster. I mean, if he's a smart guy, Philadelphia's whiffed on some coordinator hires. They've hit on some coordinator hires. You'll know by Thanksgiving. I don't expect him to be great in he's not Sean McVay. He worked next to Sean McVay. He is not Sean McVay. But we just don't know. This is one of these. He could be brilliant. But Sean McVay's, he's really become one of the coaching tree guys of note in this league, and some of them have worked, and Raheem Morris in Atlanta didn't work, so who knows?
Yeah. Interesting. So he went to Oregon State. I think you have an affinity for the Beavers.
Yeah.
I do want to ask, one of your theories that you like to say is, hey, if a coach hits the open market, how much interest is there? I can't find a lot of interviews that Sean Mannion had this cycle, Colin. So I don't know if this is a job that's maybe above his head. Like you said, bailing water for 6 weeks. Is that going to work on a team that just won the Super Bowl and is supposed to be a contender?
It is a high scrutiny job. Like Philadelphia offensive coordinator is probably the toughest coordinator job in the entire league. I'd argue it is. Philadelphia is different. Yeah. It's even harsher than New York.
I would say it's a very boom bust because right now people coming in like, what kind of
Sean
plays is he going to
McVay
call?
was a coordinator at 27. You can look that up. Shanahan was a coordinator at 28. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to, again, I'm not banging on somebody because they're young. There's brilliant 27, 28, 29-year-olds all over the country.
Agree. Let's move on to the.
Just this. And now you're just great. There's no room for improvement. It doesn't exist anywhere in life. It certainly doesn't exist when you're a quarterback in your 20s. It didn't exist for Tom Brady. Doesn't exist for Jalen Hurts. So, there is still so much room for improvement. And when you listen to the actual ex-quarterbacks talk about some of these things, Dan Orlovsky, Nick Foss, Kurt Warner, you see such a difference in what these quarterbacks can convey from a coaching perspective and what they can offer also from a coordinating perspective. And I think having this combination of almost like a hybrid between a coach quarterback, a coordinator slash quarterback coach is great. And seemingly because I also want someone for Jalen that is going to just be who's going to hold him accountable, who's going to be like, no, that was wrong. You did it wrong. Do it again. Do it again. Hold people accountable. That's why I kept saying you got to hold these guys accountable. You got to hold these guys accountable for everyone, for all coaches. For those of you who haven't been following my whole accountability coaching thing, it's an important word to me, and I don't think Kevin Patullo had any ability to hold anyone accountable. Shane Steichen did. Kel Moore did. And even Kel Moore to a lesser degree, honestly. But I'm excited about this hire. And he does not have play calling experience except for I forget. He called plays for some game. I don't really know. They named like some teams in some championship. Like I only loosely saw it because it only matters so much to me. Because if it's not the NFL, it's not the NFL, but it was like I'm not really sure what it was, but it was something, whatever it was. I'm just, it's not that important of, so I'm not gonna look into it right at this moment. But they also hired as their passing game coordinator, the offensive coordinator for the Bucks, who actually worked with Liam Coe, who was the OC this past season with the Bucks, who honestly didn't do that terrible of a job. Honestly, I know everyone's heard kind of freaking out with the Bucks and whatnot. Like, he did not do a bad job by any stretch of the imagination. It's not his fault. Baker's only so good. Just saying. But he worked under Liam Cohen, and he actually last year he called third down and fourth down plays. And so he worked extensively with Liam Cohen, who I love as a coach. And so if there is any issues, if there's a similar situation last year with Kevin Patullo or something where you're like, the play calling is awful, this, that, and the third, you do have another experienced play caller. And just as him being the passing game coordinator, as well, him and Sean will be able to work together, and he'll be able to also have some insights and be like, hey, you know, it's just other experience in the room, which I think can go a long way. So even in a situation where you're like, Sean is totally overwhelmed, this guy's got no idea what he's doing, you would do at least have another coordinator who has called plays. And again, I don't think he was terrible last year. He wasn't Liam Cohen by any stretch of the imagination. But again, that's also just a safety net. And then the ultimate safety net would be Nick Sirianni. But here's the beautiful thing about a hire like this. It either works, and that's fantastic, and the Eagles are going to be great, and they're going to win. Win-win. Hooray. Victory all around. Or it's not, and the Knicks-er-on gets fired. And then you get to hire the next big hotshot coach, whoever that may be, you know, whatever other coordinator. The focus on his 33-year-old, and it's like, yeah, that's how young these coaches are. What do you want? Nobody wants a 65-year-old offensive coordinator. Like, I don't understand. There's like any of the older coordinators, like, or who could be coordinators, like Greg Roman, Todd Mon, like people, they don't want those guys. Mike McCarthy, like, who's obviously a head coach, and so is Todd Monken now, but like, so I the only other coordinators that you can hire that people are excited about, they're young, they're in their 30s, like, that's how it is. So it is just interesting because I'm under the impression, because they interviewed a lot of people and they really did seemingly do their due diligence. I actually feel like they hired him based genuinely on the discussions they had and his understanding of football, what he's looking to do, what he will do. I'm under the impression that they actually hired him based on being like, wow, this guy's awesome. And not just, well, his name is Sean, and people aren't even really even confident how to even pronounce his name. Sean Mannion. Mannion. You know, he worked with Sean McVay. That's cool, right, guys? See, he worked with Sean McVay. That's pretty cool. Yeah. And he also worked with Matt LaFleur, right? Yeah. 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 Or like, hey, here's this other coach that we all know. He's done some cool stuff. Like, hey, let's get that guy. I'm under the impression that they interviewed him and they were like, yeah, man, I'm BL. I love what this guy is saying. I love what this guy is bringing to the table. I love his approach, what he's going to look to do. And there's so many things that a Jalen Hurts can work on that he's never really gotten the opportunity. You know, just things from a mechanical standpoint, his footwork, syncing up his footwork to the roots, like all this type of stuff that he's never gotten the opportunity to do. I just made a whole video and before on from First Things First, where Nick Ray and company were like, this Jalen Hurts is who he is. And it just made me see red, and I went on another rant about that, and I didn't even get the opportunity to talk about some of that other stuff, some of the more practical side of coaching, because the take that they had was just so absurd and just literally made up. It's just that when you can link Jalen Hurts with a legitimate offensive mind who understands all of it connected together, not just brilliant play calling like a Mike McDaniel. I do not think a Mike McDaniel can develop a quarterback. I think he can put a quarterback in a great position to succeed without a doubt. But I'm not convinced that he can develop. Andy Reid can develop. I'm not so sure Sean McVay can develop. Honestly, I'm not so sure of Ben Johnson. again, I believe they can put these guys in positions to succeed at the highest level. At the highest level. But Kevin Unell, I do believe, can help develop. Now listen, he JJ. McCarthy, it's a little bit of an interesting situation there, but like I do believe in his ability to do that. Even if we haven't really been able to see it for an extended period of time quite yet. But there's a difference between putting a player in a position to succeed and developing them and helping them continue to grow and evolve. And again, some of those other names that I just threw out there, it's not to say they can't or that the other ones can. It's just there is different levels of coaching. And I do think that's why it's not all co-coaches are considered quarterback whisperers or anything like that. And I just think that there's just differences between developing and just putting players in positions to succeed. And that is why a lot of these, that's why they have quarterback coaches also. And even Sam Darnold as the king example right now, because of obviously what he's been able to achieve. People just credit Kevin Unell or his time with Kyle Shanahan and whatnot. And it's like, no, it was also the quarterback coaches that he worked with, working with Palmer in the summer. Like, it was putting in the work beyond just, hey, I'm with a coordinator now who can put me in a position to succeed. Like, it's more than that. And I believe, based on what I've known, what I know about Sean, that he gets to incorporate all of that, together. And I think it's an awesome spot for Jalen Hurts to be in. And really one of the only other examples, not the only other example, but the example that I can think of right now is with Liam Cohen and Trevor Lawrence. There was a moment with Liam Cohen coaching Trevor in the beginning of the season, and it actually was a fight that they had. Not a fight, but a disagreement. Liam Cohen dialed up the right play, all this type of stuff. But Trevor, I forget exactly, but Trevor essentially threw the wrong type of ball that, to the naked eye, to the person who's just maybe casually watching, you would just think, oh, the wide receiver dropped it. And again, off the top of my head, I forget exactly, but essentially, he either, Liam Cohen wanted him to put it on his chest rather than, I don't know, I don't think it was like he threw a back shoulder when he shouldn't have, but whatever it was the wrong type of throw. And Liam in that moment was just like essentially like saying, like, you made the wrong throw, like put it on his chest. And because Trevor didn't throw the right type of throw, the play didn't work out. Not all coaches, that sounds very small, it sounds very little. Not all coordinators, not all coaches in real time are set up to have that moment, to have that developmental dynamic with their quarterback. But you are in such a better position to get that real-time feedback from a Kellen Moore, from a Liam Cohen, from ideally Sean Mannion and I think that can go a long way with Jalen Hurts. Now, the rest is up to Jalen Hurts of his willingness to learn and grow and evolve. And I put it square on his shoulders that even if Sean is not a great play caller, which we have no idea how great or not great he will be, I do believe that we should see Jalen Hurts from a developmental standpoint improve. And if we don't, I will put that more on Jalen's shoulders. And I've defended Jalen especially this whole past year. I don't care. I'm not talking about his stats. I'm not talking about him throwing for over 4,000 yards and 30 touchdowns, because that will be play calling. That will be like, we will start to be like, well, is so-and-so open? How's the flow of the game? All that stuff. But in terms of actually seeing Jalen Hurts being able to work within a system, work within a passing structure, seeing I want to be able to watch clips in September, October, November where Orlowski is saying, look what Jalen is doing here. These are not things that he was doing last year. And look at the positive impact it's having on this offense. It's like every week we should be seeing a breakdown from Orlovsky, from what the heck's his name right now? Greg Cole, etc. And it should be great. And, Greg Olson should be pointing it out in real time, and Troy Amon should be pointing it out in real time, and Tom Brady should be pointing it out in real time, regardless of the stats, regardless of the record. Want to see that next evolution? And I do believe that if he had to choose between, again, a Mike McDaniel or something, or a Sean Mannion, I just believe we were, even though maybe a Mike McDaniel can put these guys in a position to succeed maybe better, because more experienced play caller, a better play designer, etc., that's fine. But at this point, getting Jalen Hurts to develop, and I made a whole video actually of Dan Rowski discussing that, of being like, they need a long-term coordinator because Jalen Hurds' development has been stunted because of it. And that's why I like went nuts on the first things first clip where they were like, Jalen Hurds is just who he is. And it's just like, you guys don't know what you're talking about. Have you ever been coached a day in your life? Like, what are you talking about? Jalen Hurds is apparently the one quarterback that's that, a great coach can't make him better. It's pretty crazy. And so that's ultimately what I'm the most optimistic and hopeful for him. And actually, Doug Nussmeier, who was the quarterback coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, did an awesome job in 2024 with Jalen Hurts. And then Kellen Moore took him, understandably so, and made him the OC, although I'm pretty sure Kel Moore called all the plays. And so these types of things, these things really do matter. They didn't talk enough about his impact on the Eagles. And actually, Mark Sanchez pointed out last year how great of a job he did. He was really the only person that I heard ever bring him up. So I think you're getting a little bit of everything with their new hire. And I find that really encouraging. Really, really encouraging. And I'm fascinated to see what it brings. I understand that it wasn't this like slam dunk Ben Johnson style hire, but I'm not so sure who, like really the three main names that everybody just knows, right? At this point, everybody knows Brian Dable. They know Mike McDaniel. They know Cliff Kingsbury, right? Like, those are the three prominent names from an offensive standpoint that everyone just knows that was technically available. And I get that. And so it's seemingly like any of those three, if you don't get any of those three, it was always going to feel somewhat of a stretch or disappointing. Like I said, if you ended up getting like a Greg Roman or a Todd Monken, like people wouldn't exactly be like super excited. They wouldn't feel great about that. If the Eagles fired Nick Sirianni and hired Mike McCarthy, or brought Mike McCarthy as the head coach, or Doug Peterson or Frank Snorts Reich, like some of these moves are also kind of like groaning. I guess, you'd be like, I guess the most comfortable out of that I would actually feel was with Mike McCarthy, but obviously he became a head coach and they're not going to fire then hire McCarthy. But if you were able to get him as an offensive coordinator, you'd be like, okay. But like, I think this is just really encouraging. And I think there should be legit optimism. And again, if it doesn't work out, then again, I fully believe Nix is gone. Goodbye. See you later. And then you would then have the opportunity to hire the top offensive mind. And this year it would be Clint Kubiak, and next year who knows him. And Clint Kubiak might even stay with Seattle, actually might get another Ben Johnson-esque type situation where he's like, I'm going to stick around. I don't want to coach the Raiders or the Cardinals. Let me see what else is on the table here. And then it's like, all right, if the Eagles fail, then it's like, then you could potentially lock up Clint Kubiak. And again, if Kubiak goes to Vegas, which I'm sure Brady and company will do everything they can to get him, then you see which next coach emerges and go from there. So I think there's a clear path. I think there's an exciting path. I like the potential connection between Sean and Jalen, and not only from an actual instilling an offense and a system, but then also some of the developmental aspects that he can bring to Jalen Hurts. And then also the background of now bringing in the offensive coordinator from the Bucs as well, who worked with Liam Cohen, who I believe has had success, has him. I just feel like they're actually doing things that will benefit this Eagles offense. And even something is now taking the C coach, who now even worked with Baker Mayfield, who is now another smaller type of quarterback, where people are apparently all afraid that Jalen Hurts can't see the middle of the field, et cetera, et cetera. Just bringing in other coaches from the outside in that have worked with a collection of different coaches, a collection of different quarterbacks, I think it just goes a really long way, and I think there's a lot, which is why at this point I'm going to put a ton on Jalen Hurts' shoulders. I defended and put essentially all of the blame last season on everyone else but Jalen. And unless we hear these coaches are just so overwhelmed and have no idea what they're talking about, and if they're doing some play calling where you're just like, this is awful, again, outside of that, it's just like, I'm expecting Jalen to get to work. I'm expecting Jalen to be like, let's build something special, or let's build a connection, like, let's go here. The interesting thing is, and I'll end here because this isn't like a true thought, but it's like if Sean ends up being an awesome coach, an awesome quarterback coach, you know, a true quarterback whisperer and an awesome offensive mind, and you're just like, whoa, I've never seen Jalen play so great in my entire life. This is unbelievable. Do you say, okay, bye Sirianni, we're keeping Sean, because otherwise the Sean's going to get a head coaching job in who's what team is likely to get, who's likely to get fired this next season? I don't know. It's hard to really predict at this point because it seems like everyone just hired new coaches, but it'd be somewhere. Maybe the Bengals finally do just say, okay, Bengals, no, we extended you, but we're just firing you anyway. Like, I don't know, somewhere. And then you're just like, God, what do you do? What do you do? Kevin Unnell and the Vikings, like their things are getting messy there. They fired their GM, like, I don't know, he could be fired and like, you know, who knows. But so what do you do in that situation? Because I know the vast majority of Eagles fans would rather have Shane Stein as their head coach right now. For sure. And so listen, that would be a good problem to have and a weird one to navigate and would probably be dependent upon if you win a Super Bowl or not. Like if you win a Super Bowl, you can't just, okay, we're going to fire Sirianni and elevate Sean. But if you win a lot of games but lose in the playoffs, you could then fire Sean, then upgrade Sean, you know, kind of like what the Bills just did this year. You don't see that as frequently as I feel like maybe you once upon a time did. Seems like it's a little bit more in vogue to just fire a coach straight up and then hire a new outside voice, but I think it gives them some options here. Gives them a lot of interesting options, honestly. It really, really does. So, this is one of those things where I think you just got to trust Hal Roseman. You got to trust Hal Roseman to not make a mistake twice back-to-back seasons. If Howie's going to be the GM long enough and whatnot, you're guaranteed to make some bad hires multiple times. You're guaranteed to have bad draft picks multiple times. It's not like, oh, well, you know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. Like, it's like, no, you're guaranteed to have some bad hires over 20, 30 years. It's just guaranteed to happen. They will hire another coordinator, offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, whatever. They will draft someone in the first round and it'll be an absolute swing and a miss. It's just the way it works. But the odds of him making back-to-back bad decisions, that seems a little unrealistic to me. That seems a little bit of a stretch to me. So I think there's going to be some good things coming this way to Philly's way. So it'll be interesting. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get into some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.